Came down in
Listen, for us, it was eliminated because we only had the information.
Bring it up in comments.
Okay.
I wish Darwin was here.
Are we all set, Sherry? Okay, where's what I'm supposed to read? Okay, here we go. This goes with this. That goes with that. Okay, welcome everyone to the City of Ojai Historic Preservation Commission meeting. My name is Brian Akins, and I will be conducting tonight. Sherry, would you do the roll call, please?
Chair Akins.
Here.
Commissioners James. Here. Convery.
Here.
McHatton. Here. Vice Chair Quinn absent and 2 vacancies.
Excellent, thank you. Pledge of Allegiance, if we could stand, please. Repeat after me. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Public communications. Members of the public wishing to address the Historic Preservation Commission on items appearing on the agenda are requested to complete a speaker's card and file it with the secretary. Cards are available in the council chambers lobby. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes unless additional time is granted by the chair. Speakers should state their name and address for the record and must direct their comments to the chair, not the audience or press. While the Historic Preservation Commission is in session, members of the commission, city staff, and members of the audience are expected to maintain order and decorum and to obey the orders of the chair. Museum representative report. That's me. Here's what's going on at the Ojai Valley Museum. This coming Sunday, January 12th at 4:30 will be a town talk, New Perspectives on Krishnamurti in America by local author David Edmund Moody. The Krishnamurti exhibit is currently going on. A week from Sunday will be the last day. I recommend everybody that's here listening and knows someone to come and see it. It's an excellent exhibit. And our own Craig Walker was very helpful in researching and presenting information. Friday night, which is third Friday, 5:30 to 7:30, music by Felicity Collins. And there's free admission and snacks. I found out that the music festival is now providing entertainment at the museum on third Fridays. I saw that Felicity, I don't know her, on Facebook was going to be there, and I'm like, interesting. And so that's a nice collaboration going on. Love it. Sunday, as I said, Sunday, January 9th, last day to see Legacy, Krishnamurti in Ojai. Sunday, January 26th, Family Fun Day, Sunday, 1 through 3. New family program kicks off with, and you'll appreciate this, Dennis Shives and Bubble Fun. Okay. We do still have a piece of not functional artwork. We stopped putting the bubble fluid in it, but it's just outside the door there by the condor. Saturday, February 1st will be the opening reception for 22 Miles, Ojai Valley Landscapes, and that will be artwork that's done by artists between here and Santa Paula, and there will be a smaller version, a smaller piece of artwork, and then a larger piece of artwork that will be shown and also available for sale. So that's my commercial for the museum. As most people know, I'm also the treasurer and a board member for the museum. But it's not a conflict of interest. We had that checked out many years ago. So one thing we don't have on our agenda that I'd like to have on the agenda is we do not have an item in there that talks about visits by commissioners, and I know that there were visits that took place on the commissioners, so I'd like the commissioners to please share any visits they might have had with anyone or any place that are on our agenda tonight. Yes, Commissioner James?
1404 Foothill,
Great, thank you.
and of course the Ojai Playhouse.
Yes.
Not lately.
Okay.
I drove by the foothill and I, of course, the Playhouse.
Great, thank you both. I went and had a wonderful tour yesterday. I wasn't here when they had a festivals tour going on, so I had a wonderful tour yesterday at the 1404 home, Perkins Baker home, 1104, sorry. So thank you very much for that. And we'll talk about that later. So the other thing is, too, on October 23rd, 2019, Joe Niss, who is the deputy city manager, am I somewhat correct? What's Joe Niss's title? Joe Fiss, sorry. Oh, there he is. Okay, sorry, I thought he came and left. Assistant city manager, okay. Anyway, Joe and I had a meeting on, I think it was October 23rd, where we met with Tanya and Tobias Parker. Tanya is the daughter of Khaled Alawar, so we'll talk about that more when we get to it. This time then we'll move to the consent items for the minutes of November 14th, 2019. I was not as a matter of information, since I saw the report that's coming to the city council on Tuesday night that talked about our absences, and I had a 1 next to my name, I will tell you that a month ago, I boarded the plane in Atlanta at 6:30 in the morning our time, and at 5:30 in the afternoon, when Thais called me and told me the meeting was over, I was sitting at a red light at the Y here in Ojai. I missed it by that much because I took my dear sweet wife home. We were debating that all the way from Los Angeles. So, but I heard it was and saw that it was a very beneficial meeting. So comments on the minutes of November 14th
I
meeting.
have a question. Did we not do the Pledge of Allegiance? Because it says we did it.
No, we
but
did it.
I thought we did, but it says no in the.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah, we did it.
It says none, right?
We did, though.
Yeah, we did.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
time out for a replay. Okay, so any other comments? Yeah, I saw that that was blank too, but I didn't have time to go back and watch the video. Yeah, you have a non-underlined question mark. Okay, do I have a motion then?
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Do we need a vote?
Yeah, is there any comments, any other comments?
Other than verifying whether we said the Pledge of Allegiance or not, I guess.
James,
Yes.
Convery,
Yes.
Akins,
Yes,
Hatton.
Yes.
great, thank you. Okay, at this time, we move to the public hearing items. And do we do staff and then public comments? Okay, so Suzanne, our staff report tonight?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So this item for the Ojai Playhouse Theater is back. It was here last July, and at that time, you reviewed the historic structures report. There were a few more changes to that report that have since been incorporated into that report. The recommendation at that time was to forward it on to City Council, but we didn't adopt a resolution at that time. And the hearing was not noticed. So since that time, we have created a resolution, incorporated that into the staff report. We have sent out a mailed notice. We've published it in the Ojai Valley News. And staff has met with representatives of the property owner to make them aware of what the designation process is. And this is a designation that is being initiated by the city and not by the property owner, which is a little different than other designations that this commission has handled. So with that, the item is turned over to if the property owner representatives have any comments that they would like to add. We could do that at this time before you open a public hearing.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Now we'll listen to public comments. If you could please come to the microphone and introduce yourself to us, please. Thank you.
Tanya Parker. Do you need my address? 1414.
I don't need your
Okay.
address. Can you tell us
I
Your
am.
linkage to the
Yes.
property.
I am Cled Alawar's daughter. My father and his brother own the property half and half, and I'm here to read a statement from them this evening.
Great, thank you.
So I would like to state that the Alawar family has every intention of keeping the Ojai Playhouse building a working movie theater. Due to sensitive negotiations, we are unable to say what our plans with the businesses within the building are any further at this time. We wholeheartedly agree with the Commission's purpose of maintaining the look and feel of downtown Ojai and maintaining the historical facades of the buildings that are here. We feel it is an important part of the town's charm and character as well as its cultural heritage. As the owners and operators of the theater for 37 years, we're in full support of the Commission's plan to designate the outside of the building as a historic landmark. As stewards of this building for nearly 4 decades, our family has always been committed to maintaining its significance, both in the look of the building as one of the appealing features of downtown Ojai, along with the post office, the Oaks, and the arcade, and also providing a movie theater to the community. While we do not have plans to alter the facade of the building in any significant way, we would like to kindly request a 9-month postponement in having the building designated as a landmark. Currently, the only upgrades that are planned are to repair the letters and the marquee and change the lighting to be energy efficient. Other than the texture and color of the stucco that have already been approved and permitted by the Planning Commission, there will be no other changes to the upper front facade. These changes would not affect the landmark's important architectural features. If anything, it'll enhance the building's contribution to the streetscape of downtown Ojai. Part of our current plan is a minor change to the front window on the restaurant side of the building to make it operable. We would like to be able to proceed with that as soon as our negotiations are settled and get the space open for business. We worry the designation will add additional complications or delays of having to deal with landmark status. And with our limited funds and resources, we do not want to incur any additional expenses or delays and go through the Historical Commission approval process. Though it may not appear so outwardly, we have been working diligently over the last 4 years to come up with a plan that would give Ojai its movie theater back. Ojai needs a theater. The current state of the movie viewing in our society has changed significantly since the water main break and the flood of the Ojai Playhouse. That is the primary reason for the present delays in construction, as we have been doing extensive research and getting as much needed consultation from professionals in the industry as to the best ways to rebuild a movie theater that people will still want to come to on a regular basis. We can all agree that everyone wants to see this building open for business again as soon as possible. We are finally in a position to move forward, and we are currently restarting construction within the permits already obtained from the city. A postponement in the designation would help us expedite any further permits that would be needed for the minor changes that are planned. It's in everyone's best interest to move forward with the plans as we discussed without additional encumbrances so that we can move quickly and efficiently. In this immediate step of negotiation that we are in, we do not wish to have additional steps and expenses incurred by the designation. Again, our family is in full support of the historic designation, just as we are fully committed to keeping the business a movie theater. We only kindly ask for the postponement in the designation so we can continue our plans to reopen as soon as possible.
Great, thank you. Anything
I
else
have
you'd
a
like to add?
question.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner
Before
Convery?
you leave, can you tell me what the minor changes are again?
The front window, there's a front window on the restaurant side of the building. They would like to make that so that
Where
it's
the
operable.
gestures?
Yeah.
And then lighting, something about lighting?
We would like to change the lights within the marquee and the Ojai Playhouse sign to be energy efficient.
So I don't think those changes are really affected by a landmark designation, really.
The changes to the window?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a really minor, that's one thought. And then the other thought is if you pull the permits now, you don't have, you're already in the process. So if the designation happens, you shouldn't have to go back in time and come in front of us again.
Correct. We're just still navigating
Yeah.
negotiation that we don't know when that will be settled.
To sell it?
I
What's
can't
the
say.
negotiation? Well, that is the challenge here, because if it's in escrow or if it's a private sale and that transfers to a new ownership, there could be a much bigger challenge in designating it as a landmark. So that's what we're looking at. And it's, it's all very gray. And we love Colette. We love your father very much. You know, he's been given many, many awards, so that's,
It is
Goes
not
without saying.
currently in escrow.
yeah.
It is off the market publicly. And when it was on the market, my dad did have a clause in it that it was to remain a movie theater.
I don't know that that's legally enforceable, really.
No, but he wasn't willing to sell it to anybody who wasn't willing to keep it a theater.
But when they buy it, they can do whatever they want. You know, people lie. Let's just say it. So, you know, these are all, I don't mean to give you a hard time, but these are all things that we need to consider because there are a lot of very interesting developers here doing interesting things. And they're, you know, the parameters are pretty loose. So that's why I asked you those, you know, the sale questions. And as far as the permits, what you described shouldn't be a challenge with a landmark status.
Would it still, but it would still have to go through the
Not
commission.
necessarily. Maybe the front window, but you go, look, here's the window we like, and it pretty much looks good because you guys have good taste, and we say, great.
Are there any additional costs to go through the commission with the permitting process?
$500 maybe, something like that.
There would be additional fees for the review and approval. It may be something that qualifies for a minor work permit, or well, I guess if it's designated, it would be a major work permit.
I thought there was a number attached to minor and major work permits. I think that's under review with City Council.
It's
They're
currently
looking
under
at
review.
that. And there is an option to waive those fees, especially, I think we can waive the fees according to the code because we have discretion, especially with something, a property like that with an owner like that, that could be considered, you know.
Could we have that stated that those fees would be waived before it was designated?
Well, we can't decide that tonight here, but it is, you know, something to discuss and look at so that we can find a balance where we all feel comfortable making a decision, you know, to make it work for everyone.
Yeah, it's our every intention to keep the
Yeah.
building as
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, if it weren't, you know, a challenge about possible sale to someone else, and people do say things and then they do other things, as we all know, then I wouldn't be having this conversation, you know, but, because I know your dad. But
Yeah,
that's the
the
issue.
The sale likely would not go through in this time period.
In 9 months?
Yeah, I can't say more than
Yeah,
that.
but nobody knows, you know, and also.
I know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, but I do know some of the rumors, I'll just say that.
Oh,
'cause,
yeah, there's
you know,
lots of them.
A lot of rumors, but some of these guys can move fast and do things, and, you know, it's just
Yeah, that's not the
a
situation.
challenge. Yeah, I know. We've been wanting to watch a movie for like 5 years now, so
Yeah,
I get it.
fully understand.
Yeah, anyway, just appreciate your
Yeah.
input, and those are my thoughts.
We're mostly concerned with the cost and time delays.
With a landmark,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, because I think we are finally in a position to be moving forward. It's not going to be another 4
Yeah,
years at this
and
point.
I think that's a good conversation to have, because I think landmark costs could be allayed, you know, with working with us and with working with the council, because the council, the whole town's really interested in getting this back on track.
Absolutely.
And I
Us
think
too.
there's room for discretion and there's room for help on both sides. I don't see why that can't happen, because your dad's really gone to bat to get this back up and running. So, you know, I think the fear factor could be misplaced or unnecessary. You know, I think we can work on that.
Okay.
Other commission comments?
I'm okay with the delay, but
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there other members of the public to speak?
There are. I just wanted to know if there were any other questions for Tanya.
The commission's action tonight is a recommendation to city council.
Yes.
If there is a desire to request waiver of fees, that would probably be something that would be under the consideration of the city council. Whatever action you choose to take tonight, you could incorporate recommendations on an operable window,
Yeah.
your suggestions on
I have
fees.
another question for you. This has been floating around here for how long? 6 months, a year?
At least, yes.
So why haven't you guys or your dad asked for a delay previous to tonight where it's going to the finish line?
Oh, I didn't know that we could.
Yeah.
That we could.
Oh.
So when I heard about the meeting,
Yeah.
that's when we started talking.
Yeah, because I think he discussed it early on when they did the historic report, and the whole conversation's been.
Would that have been with my dad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I talked with your dad in the gallery before we started all this.
So that would have been at
You know,
least
but-
back in
yeah.
January.
Yeah, it just makes, like a year ago, January, it just makes me curious about why all of a sudden now you want to delay, red flags. So.
No, it's more just from the construction aspect with our contractor and wanting
Yeah.
to move forward and
Is it
just get the building
Carrie?
open. Yeah, it's Carrie Miller, and the contractor will stay Carrie Miller.
Yeah, that's good.
Along with my husband Tobias Parker, who's been doing a lot of the work as well.
Yeah,
So, and Tobias and I have kind of taken over for the family in the last couple months.
yeah. Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you. I will, just a second, I will mention that in the discussion that we had with Tanya and Tobias, and we were with Joe, we were going to have, I think, city manager there, or I'm not sure what his title was right at the moment. I think it was city manager, but other business came, and he would have joined us that night. But I will mention just for information, because Commissioner Convery brings up an excellent point, but we didn't discuss the possibility of a delay in that meeting. I'm sorry, it just didn't,
No, that hadn't really come up. We didn't know the timeline either at that point.
well, yeah, but I'm just raising that issue with Commissioner Convery, so she's aware of the parts of the, because I think we did go in depth with you and Tobias over what the process was, what you could anticipate. And again, I don't think Joe is sitting behind you. He was in that conversation that we said, asking for a delay may be an option to you. So I'm sorry for not
thank you.
doing that. That just didn't come up.
No, it definitely didn't come up. Thank you.
Another, and maybe Tobias, I don't know if you want to participate in this, but if I were on your side of it and I were doing the construction, which always goes slowly and more slower than one would think, I would be saying, hey, wait a minute, they're going to designate this, and we thought we'd already be done by now. Is that what's happening? Are you guys, is it like dragging a little bit? Not on your part, but just because of the weather or whatever?
Things have dragged for a variety of reasons. Absolutely have dragged for a variety of reasons, but
So,
Yeah.
yeah, but on whatever side, getting it done, whatever, you're maybe not as far along as you thought you'd be when it was, by the time it got to designation status?
yeah, we thought we'd be in a
Is that
very
what's
different
happening?
place at this point.
You thought you'd be done?
Well, yeah, we thought we would have some answers and solutions for you as to what would be happening with the business.
Okay.
Let's see, again, I went in that meeting, I went through the process. Originally, going back to the very beginning, the commission was asked to set up what were our priorities on historical properties and finding out more information. Yours was the one that came after this building and the grammar school, and so that was the next one we moved to, and we were the ones that went and asked for a historical report to be done. That's part of what we do, part of the commission that we have. And so we got that information. I think once we received that report, then we read through it, and we what we had suggested mid-year last year was that we had reviewed the report, seen the adjustments, and that we were recommending that it go to council at that time. That was the report. That wasn't the landmarking. So just to keep that straight. So that's all I have.
And we are fully behind the designation. We aren't going to oppose it. We just want to help save any time and costs for our plans with the building.
Excellent.
And they really are not anything past what we have said.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much. Next up in speaking is Craig Walker. If you, sir, can state your name and.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
Craig Walker. I just wanted to say that I think it would be an easy thing for you to, if you send a recommendation to the council, to recommend that there be a waiver of fees and that they, it sounds to me from the way the report is written that it wouldn't be a problem making, like you were saying, making the adjustment for the window. So anyway, my name is Craig Walker, and I was hired by Carol DiNardo of the Provenience Group to research and write Section 4 of the Theater Historic Report. Section 4 covers the background history of the Ojai Valley and the history of the theater itself. Ms. DiNardo then used her expertise as an architectural consultant to evaluate the theater and its history in terms of the criteria for listing on the National Register, the State Register of Historic Places, and for designation as a local landmark. She found that the theater meets the criteria for all 3 levels of designation: national, state, and local. As a local historian, I agree with her wholeheartedly. I also testified at the court trial over damages to the building by Golden State Water Company. The Alawars argued that because the theater is a significant historic building, it should be restored instead of replaced. The judge concurred and awarded the Alawars a judgment large enough to fund the full restoration of the historic building. The outpouring of public support we have witnessed for renovating and reopening the theater is evidence that the community wants the building preserved. It is still seen as an important architectural, cultural, and financial anchor for the downtown, just as it was envisioned by J.J. Burke back in 1914. The building was also an inspiration for Edward Drummond Libby, who in 1916 set in motion his own downtown redevelopment plan. As part of that project, the theater building was remodeled to tie it more closely to the design of the new arcade, post office, and pergola. The 1918 renovation of the theater facade was done by Mead and Requa's builder, Robert Winfield, who also remodeled this building here. The time is right to landmark the Ojai Theater, to preserve the town's unity of design and purpose as envisioned by Edward Libby and J.J. Burke. After Mr. Libby's redevelopment of the Civic Center, the town's residents decided to incorporate as a city so they could better manage future development in keeping with Mr. Libby's vision. New Spanish buildings were added and renovations of existing buildings were undertaken. When Ojai's historic buildings began to age in the 1960s and 70s, the city removed the pergola to make way for a new redevelopment proposal, but soon regretted it. In 1989, when the arcade was deemed unsafe, the city stepped in and saved it from demolition. Since then, the city has helped preserve the old jail, the Catholic chapel, the Smith-Hobson estate, the Ojai Day celebration, and the pergola's reconstruction. Also, the city has landmarked nearly 30 of the town's important historic buildings. Next year, 2021, is the city's 100th anniversary, its centennial year. One of the city's great achievements over the last 100 years has been planning future development based on Mr. Libby's vision and preserving the many historic buildings that define his legacy. I urge you to recommend that the council landmark the Ojai Theater building. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Craig. Any questions for Craig? Okay, thank you, Craig.
I have a question. Not really
Sure.
for, it's a combination question. So what had Craig said and what you had said about waiving fees and putting that into,
Can we hold that out
Okay.
until after the public
What?
comment?
okay,
I have one other item. Okay, so yesterday at 8:18, Sherry received an email from a former Ojai HPC commissioner and Ojai historian, Elise DePoit. How does that get into the record? It is. Oh, okay. So if people want to see that, how would they?
Can you read it, please?
If you'd like, I'll go with that suggestion. So here's what Elise said. Again, it came in yesterday morning. Historic Preservation Commission, I support the designation of the historic Ojai Playhouse Theater as an Ojai historical landmark and urge the Historic Preservation Commission to pass a resolution recommending the Ojai Playhouse as City of Ojai Historical Landmark number 26 to the Ojai City Council. With the theater's location on the southwest corner of Ojai Avenue and Signal Street, it is one of the key Mission Revival style elements in the historic downtown core, along with the arcade, pergola, post office tower, the El Roblar Hotel, the Oaks of Ojai, and other structures built in the period from 1916 to 1930. In addition, it was the first building of this style in the town when it was still called Nordhoff. The research conducted by the Provenience Group concludes in their report dated July 22nd, 2019, that the subject property is eligible for designation in the National Register, California Register, and as a City of Ojai Historic Landmark. The report also concludes that the Ojai Playhouse meets all 8 of the city's criteria. This means there is no greater level of eligibility for a landmark status. I also think it is better to complete the landmark process of the Ojai Playhouse as soon as possible and not to delay due to any pending sale and new ownership. The building has been closed for 5.5 years since July 2019, and it is not known when it will reopen. Designating the building as a landmark now will protect the building from alterations that may occur in the future with changes to ownership and uses. It will be helpful to potential buyers to clearly know the historical status of the building in advance of purchase. Thank you for your consideration of this important landmark decision, and I appreciate all your efforts in this regard. Elise DePoit, former Ojai HPC Commissioner and Ojai historian. So thank you. That's now on the record. Any other public comments? Then I will close the public comment section and open it up for commissioner questions and discussion.
So
Yes,
my
Commissioner
question is,
McCatton.
like Craig said and Suzanne, that there be a way that we could put into our request to the council to make it easy on a timeline and financially, would that be sufficient for you? Or,
I think so, yes.
I'd like, because if we can come up with an agreement here,
Just a second. If you're going to ask somebody out there, we need to ask them to come to the microphone.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's not going to show up
you come
on
back up, please. I'm
the
sorry.
population that's out there throughout the world that's watching every minute.
So what I'm
So
saying
please
is,
go ahead.
I would like it to, if we could come to an agreement here and go to council in unity, so then you won't have to go to council and then come back up and then,
I would appreciate that.
yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that we could, if that was on the table, to try to figure out something that we could come to agreement
Yeah.
on. Okay, thank you.
Great.
I think we'd all be okay with that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a comment.
Yes, Commissioner
Um,
Convery?
Yeah, Craig made a comment that Khaled was helped in the court case by stating it was a landmark building and describing the history with the city, and that, that seemed to make an effect. I think that's what you said in his behalf, which is great, and that tells me that the landmark status was really beneficial. And on the other hand, I really appreciate all the work that he's done and how hard it's been, because I've talked to him for a couple hours here and there over the years on how hard it's been to get this thing going. So I see both sides, but I also think, like Commissioner McCatton has said, that we can work to find a way to landmark it and strike a balance. We're lucky we have 2 council members here who are listening to all the details, so you can take that back to council. But I know that the word discretion is mentioned in the code, I think 57 times, because I Googled it. And I think there's discretion to waive landmark fees on something like this because it is a benefit to the city. So I think that could be an issue, that helps you. The other challenge that I would see as a builder is that if you need to come in front of HPC to approve the window width adjuster or whatnot, we only meet once a month, and that's a hindrance. Maybe there's an option where we could have a special meeting to approve, your designs in order for you to move forward with building. I don't see that that is a challenge. We've had a special meeting once or twice, so, if you're open to that, in order so that they're not hung up for 4 weeks, because I think that's a huge negative with something like this, is waiting to get on the agenda. So those would be my 2 options to offer to work together, moving forward to landmark the theater. And my big fear is that it would be bought by somebody who's not on the same page that your dad is on. So, anyway, that's it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I like both of their
Is your mic on?
suggestions.
Okay,
And I was
yeah.
wondering if can we find a way tonight to, okay.
Well, we make a recommendation. Okay, so just a couple of things. As for the special meeting, I may have mentioned this before. It was actually requested that we hold a special meeting. As you'll remember, we didn't have a meeting in December. I was told by one of our new arrivals, that the information for the package, didn't get the package out in time for us to meet for a regular time, so they were going to postpone that meeting. They were going to have a special meeting. You know how we love December special meetings? And I just shared with that person that, and I believe it was going to talk about the Playhouse, and I believe that, I'm sure I told that person, yeah, that's not going to happen. We've already had one of those, and it
So you're
isn't
saying
something.
that you're.
So I think we could, I think, I'm just saying that, yes, we could hold a special
meetings
meeting.
are a
As long as
challenge?
it's,
It's
no,
not
as
in
long as it's
December.
not in December, 6 days
Okay.
before
So
Christmas.
yeah, from Halloween to New Year's, you're not getting a special meeting, just saying.
Yeah, my December was booked over there. The other thing is, going back to a conversation that I had with your father there at the gallery before we went out for RFQs and everything else for the historical report, was the fact that I told him that we were looking at a historical report, what the basis was. The basis was that it's what we asked for as far as getting information on whether something is historical, if it is, why it's historical, something that we should know, and that's what we were planning to do. And we were also getting ready to talk about a possible downtown historic district. He was fully in support of that. The only thing he didn't agree with at that time was Joan Kemper closing down Ojai Avenue and inviting the entire community to come and party like 1994, whatever the, 99, sorry. And so that was the only thing he disagreed with. But a key point that I remember that he did say, again, you know, this was 15 months ago, maybe. He did say that he'd like us to wait on some of the processes going forward. So again, that was some time ago, but as we discussed, there are, you know, things haven't moved along as they fairly don't, as well as I think all of us, including the community, would like, but such is life. So I think that's all I have on my notes that I've written down here. Any other comments by commissioners? Do we have a motion that we'd like to make?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend it as a landmark status to council, but with the provision that council consider waiving historic fees, and that we as a commission would offer to have a special meeting to approve changes if necessary, if it doesn't coincide with our regular meeting.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, further discussion. So I personally am fully in support of that. Again, this is an anchor in our community. It is beloved by all. And I think anything the city could do to help along the process and work together with the owners in that process is something that we would all like to see take place and all like to do. Commissioner Convery was talking about the awards that your father has received. That was initially why I went and met with him on the gallery, because we were considering granting an award to your father for all that he's done, much in the way of preservation and support. And he declined. He said he had enough awards and we should share them with others. So again, I would like to see that. Again, as mentioned to you in that meeting, we are a body that makes a recommendation to the city council. As Commissioner Convery said, 2 of those members are here. I'm sure other members will watch it on television. So I'll leave with that. And are we ready to call for a vote? Okay, call for a vote, please.
James,
Yes.
Convery,
Yes.
Akins,
Yes,
McCatton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
great, thank you. Thank you both very, very much. So where it goes from here is up to is beyond our hands now. The scheduling will be done in the powers that be outside this room. And I'm sure if you talk with Gail, who you were just speaking with for a moment, will have an idea. Also, you have the two council members behind you that will have a far better idea than us on when it will be on the agenda. It just won't be on their next Tuesday because they're going to be looking at us commissioners and why we missed a meeting. So, it's an inside joke. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item number 3. Okay, there we are. Public hearing, item number 3.
Sure. This is the request for designation for the Perkins Baker residence located at 1104 Foothill Road, and a Mills Act or historic property agreement between the city and the property owners for preservation of the property. On October 8th, we received an application from Ms. Carrie Apple-Perman for designation and for the historic property agreement. There were 2 reports that were part of your packet, one from San Buenaventura Research Associates that found the property eligible for designation under criteria C and E, and a supplemental report prepared by Mr. Walker that found the property eligible for designation under criterias A, B, D, and G after researching the additional information. So that is the majority of the categories for potential criterion for designation. This structure was built by Sam Hudeberg. Did I say that right? One of the Valley's early master builders. The objects records were contained in your staff report as Exhibit B. In the report, it was also identified that the landscaping was done by a landscape architect by the name of Lockwood DeForest III. In around 1925, the homeowner has expressed the desire to use that as a reference in planting to make sure that the plantings or the plant palette is complementary to the Tudor Revival historic style. The commission is requested to hold the public hearing for the designation as well as the historic property agreement. That'll allow for necessary changes to the building to preserve, rehabilitate, and restore the structure. There is a color board that was also submitted as a part of your packet with information on the color palette that is existing and a list of like-for-like repairs. So that would be ordinary repair and maintenance would not be subject to this commission's review. There's also a few items that they talked about that are structures that generally don't require a permit that would also not come before this commission, like a storage shed or a detached play structure, things that are not permanent improvements. This property was subject to a 10-day notice hearing that happened in the Ojai Valley News, as well as a mailed notice. The recommendation to designate, as well as the recommendation for the Mills Act agreement are exempt from further review under CEQA, sections 15061B3 and 15331. These allow for actions that do not have any or do not involve any physical changes to the environment where it can adversely impact a significant historic resource. So with that, I turn it over to you.
Great, thank you very much. We do have a public speaker, Craig Walker. Before Craig comes up, I would like to acknowledge that Carrie Apple-Perlman and Tracy Albert, husband and wife who own the property, are sitting here with us. So Craig, you're up.
Good evening. My name is Craig Walker. In 2016, the owners of the Perkins Baker residence, Tracy Albert and Carrie Perlman, hired San Buenaventura Research Associates to write a historic report in connection with some renovations they were doing on their home. That report concluded that the house was historically significant and eligible for City of Ojai landmark status. Last year, Carrie and Tracy decided to nominate their house for landmark status. They asked me to research the home further and write a supplemental report. I was able to find a wealth of new information on both the home and the original owners that added significantly to its story and to the facts supporting landmark designation. In your packet, you have both the original report by San Buenaventura Research Associates and my supplemental report. Not only is the home a beautiful example of 1920s Tudor Revival architecture, designed by William Edwards, a well-known Santa Barbara architect. He designed the Arlington Theater and the old terminal, or the terminal for the Santa Barbara Airport. It reflects several important themes in Ojai history. Its original owners, Franklin and Margie Perkins, were important contributors to that history. In fact, as wonderful as the home is, its architectural significance is overshadowed by the historic significance of Frank and Margie Perkins. The Perkins were a young, wealthy couple who came to Ojai in 1923 when Franklin was 28 and Margie was 26. Like many wealthy Easterners, they came to Ojai on account of Franklin's poor health. They lived at the Bristol Cottages while their home was constructed. Franklin served as the general contractor, and the builder was Sam Huddeberg. The Perkins Baker home is next door to the Libby home, though Mr. Libby died shortly after the Perkins moved in. Inspired by Libby and in spite of his own illness, Franklin jumped into community affairs and played an important role in the development of the community and the modernization of the town. He served on several community boards where he took a hands-on approach to improving local institutions, including the Ojai Library, and he was instrumental in getting the new library building built on Ojai Avenue. The Presbyterian Church, he was instrumental in getting that building built on the corner of Aliso and Foothill. He was one of the first members of the Ojai Fire District. He was a member of the Ojai Tennis Tournament, the Community Arts Association, the Red Cross, and the Ojai Community Chorus. He also wrote a weekly column for the Ojai newspaper and published a book called Ojai the Beautiful. This was all over a period of only 3 or 4 years, since Franklin died in 1929 at the age of 35. But Margie picked up the ball and continued in his position on the library board. She was also instrumental in the founding of the Ojai Arts Center in 1939, the Monica Ross School in 1940, and the Ojai Music Festival in 1946. She inspired many women in the Ojai Valley to serve their community, including my own mother, who was friends with Margie during the late 1950s and early 60s. In 1975, Margie Perkins Baker sold the house and moved to Santa Barbara with her second husband, Morgan Baker. Since then, it has been the home of 2 Hollywood stars, Denny Miller, who played Tarzan, and Peter Scolari of the TV show Bosom Buddies. Today, the home is owned by Tracy Albert and Carrie Perlman. Tracy serves on the Ojai Museum Board, and the couple recently opened the house to the public as part of the festival's 2019 Holiday Home Look-In. How amazing is it that they have decided to landmark the Perkins Baker residence? As a city landmark, it will inspire others, not only through the beauty of the 1920s Tudor Revival architecture, but also through the story of Franklin and Margie Perkins, who as a young couple did so much to bring Ojai into the 20th century. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Craig. Any question of Craig by the commissioners?
Was the original owner a Chase? Was that, it says here?
Well, the owner of the land, there was 2 women that came to Ojai from Massachusetts, the Chase mother and daughter, and they bought one of those lots. They were subdivided by J.J. Burke around the Foothills Hotel, the old Foothills Hotel, and they were meant to be sold to people coming from the east. And so they bought the front. There's 2 parcels. The front parcel was owned by Miss Chase, but she never built on it.
Yeah.
And so Franklin Perkins' mother came out from Chicago and bought the land, and she bought both the front lot that was owned by the Chases and then also the back lot, which had not been sold and still belong to the Foothill Association.
So I think that her house down the street was also owned by Chase. I don't know if they're connected.
Not by Chase, but it was probably part of it might have been part of the same Foothill Park development that
Yeah.
J.J. Bird set up, as was the Libby home and the Pratt home and all of those that were built. And they were all built to attract people to live there, but then also do their socializing and everything at the Foothills Hotel.
But not part of the Chase Dairy people who owned Cindy's home.
I'm thinking of
At one
J.P.
time.
Morgan Chase.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
no.
But there's an interesting article, if I can just tell you this, written by Pat Clark Dorner, that's on the OhiHistory.com, called Preservation in Progress. And she quotes Miss Chase as being one of the original preservationists. She was so much of an Ojai preservationist that they actually fought against building bridges on Creek Road because they felt it would create more traffic into Ojai. And they liked the fact that Ojai was remote and you had to drive across the creek on 12 or 13 spots.
Greg, do you know if she's a sister to Pearl Chase?
Pardon me?
Do you know if her sister is
Santa
Pearl
Barbara?
Chase, of the Pearl Chase Society?
Oh, no, I don't know.
There might be a connection there. 'cause
Oh,
She's a
okay.
preservationist.
Yeah, probably.
Santa Barbara. Great, thank you, Craig. Okay, to add a bit of a moment of history, since Craig didn't mention Denny Miller's other great thing. This was given to me by David Mason. It says, to David, good friend, Denny Miller, otherwise known as Tarzan. Yes, and I was thinking of him, Denny Miller was also the Gorton's fisherman.
Oh.
So, see, there you go, a little bit of history. And so I happened to see this in my office, and I said, oh, I got to remember to bring that, so.
Hold that up again. I don't want to miss this moment.
There you go. Doesn't it look like, huh? Denny Miller?
Yeah.
There we go. Anyway, just a moment of history involving your house. So, okay, we'll close the public hearing then and open it up to commissioner questions and comments.
I have a question, I guess, about the interior photographs of their, I only think there are 3 interior photographs, and I wondered why you didn't include, maybe it's more of a question for Craig, since you prepared the report, but why didn't you include more interior photographs for reference, to have it on file?
Well, I think they were concentrating more on the objects of record, the things that they wanted included in the landmarking. So you got pictures that represented those things.
Yeah,
That
there,
was all.
part of it, I guess one of the reasons is when there's an issue, and this just happened recently with another property, the city refers back to the landmark report and looks at the photographs to compare them if something's been changed. So it's really helpful to have really clear
Well, I
photographs.
think they
which
would
if
be
you
willing
have
to supplement
include,
those
yeah.
if you feel that would be helpful. But
Yeah.
we just included the pictures of the objects of record.
Like the floors, what the floor wood is and what it's, how it's constructed is really good to have, because people buy houses and rip the floors out all the time without having any reference. And the Tudor arches in the hallway, I think, could. Yeah, it's
There's
hard
one in
to
there.
see. It's a little, and this literally did just happen where somebody had to refer back to photographs that were on file, and they proved out that a landmark had been changed because of the existing photographs. So I would request to include a few more interior photographs and a little more detail on those, and a little more detail about floors and things like that.
But I think there are some of the interior that they're not including in the
Yeah,
the elements, the character defining elements.
yeah, for
So,
sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Other commissioner comments? I very much appreciate the tour that you gave me yesterday, Carrie. I had not been able to make the historic homes. I believe we were out of town, and so I contacted Carrie directly. I do know Tracy. He and I are on the board together with the Ojai Valley Museum. I do not believe, I may have met Carrie at a museum event, but I got to meet her and walk through the property with her yesterday. She also showed me where changes had taken place. Items had, as they did the work, had reverted back to original characteristics that came with the building or came with the home. Again, the changes that have taken place, and I very much appreciated not only the historical report, but all of the information that you added, Craig. It's, like icing on, or the toppings on ice cream to me, going through and reading all that, marking it up and going, I have to watch that and look for that and research that. That's just so much fun. But again, walking through it yesterday, being able to go in and one of the things, and I commented on this with Carrie in the tour, was coming into the living room and seeing the wood ceiling. And, you think of wood and the upkeep on it. And she said the way it was built, the manner that it's there, that they didn't, when they were going through and refurbishing the house, they did not have to touch that. It is as it was. It is beautiful. I told her it reminded me some of churches that are now historical sites where you go and make a tour and look up the ceilings and are just, you just want to lay on the pew and enjoy the view. And truly, that's what it was. Again, I didn't mean to overdo it, but I was impressed. You're welcome. I very much enjoyed walking through, again, to see the additions as well as the items that were still in place, items that I was looking for and going through the historical report, or pointed out to what was original. One of the things that I asked about and was in the report, it seemed to indicate almost like you needed to change out the current glass and put in antique glass. And Carrie helped me understand the two glasses that for the windows that are in there, the original, and then the new glass in an addition there on the back, and pointed out exactly what they meant by that, and if there was an unfortunate breakage of glass, what they would look for to replace it in to what it currently exists. It was, just a joy to walk back. We were trying to figure out where in the wall that chimney was, and we finally, when we went out to the front of the building, we were able to identify it by the windows. We went into she invited me to go in and look at the bathrooms that were in the house, which were, I had seen in another house that's there on that same ridge, or similar to another house that's in that ridge. And so that is a historical landmark and has been for some time. And so it just brought it back. I enjoyed the fact that they still had the push button on and off lights in each of the rooms. So it was, I very much enjoyed it, very much took me back, again, with your tour, with your comments, to the time frame that there may have been. I did enjoy the comments, Craig, in your article that talked about, and I hadn't thought of this, that group of homes there and Cindy may know this better than both of us, having been in two of those homes. But Craig commented that oftentimes they would do their eating and their entertainment at the Foothills Hotel, and so often the homes had smaller kitchens. Nowadays, everything happens in a kitchen. Larger kitchens are highly sought after, and so we looked at where the original kitchen might be and now how it had been extended in keeping with everything within the home. So again, very much enjoyed walking through the park-like setting behind the house. I told Tracy earlier today, I was familiar with the home because I go to the Stanlins who live just around the corner. My comment was, oh, hi Tarzan, and then I would make a sharp turn and head to the Scanlons, never realizing just how beautiful the back area was. And going back to see what was originally the barn and now is the guest home, and going to Jenny Miller's former weight room there in the very back that's now been turned into as an escape and a pleasure and a place to enjoy. So, and I met the bunny. I also got a nice kiss from the Frenchie who could jump much higher than I thought he could. I was explaining that to my wife. So, so again, I was very impressed. I am pleased to know that on that Foothill Park, on that ridge that has such key and important homes, that we do have homes that are historic. Again, much thanks to Cindy on my right, who has restored 2 of those homes, and they're currently landmarks. So adding another there to that, and a beautiful home and fine work. I also appreciated that you had a plan in there for what would be done in the years coming forth. My question goes back to staff, and I know we've asked this for years and years and years, is somebody going to follow up on that? Joe?
I know that Lucas and I have spoken about what we need to do in future Mills Act contracts coming forward and reviewing them annually and trying to get extension of what their work timeline is in the future. So we'll be working on that.
Great.
Months to come.
I think this is a perfect opportunity to do that, because the plan going forward is so well laid out with what is going to be accomplished in each year, what the cost is on each of those, as well as the information on the steps that have been done to move us forward. So I think, we have a blueprint for going forward on that, and something that we could follow up with and not be asking ourselves 10 years from now what happened.
Correct.
So that's all I have. Any other comments, questions? Do we have a motion?
Oh, actually,
Go ahead.
I want to make a recommendation in the motion that we include, that the owner includes some more interior photographs and a little more clearly on the Tudor arches. And I know the floors aren't considered a character-defining detail and landmark status, but original quarter-sawn oak floors are all indigenous to these historic homes. So to include that and make that part of the historic record, so that future reference for the city, they'll have those pictures on file to see what that looks like. Are there any original light fixtures in the house?
Original light fixtures?
Original to the time that it was built, to the 20s?
Hard to know, because when we came in there, the prior owner obviously had made a lot of changes to the fixtures.
Mm-hmm.
We did, in restoring the home, we did actually look and sought out old fixtures within the time frame, and we put those up.
I think the exterior fixtures might be original. The exterior light fixtures, the little witch hat lights, are those there?
Cindy, I'm not 100%, I don't know if we're 100% sure on
Yeah.
that, but we do know we went to.
Excuse me, Tracy, could I get you to come to the microphone, please? I'm sorry.
Okay. So, in addressing the fixtures, I don't know whether there were, I think there were a lot of changes made by the prior owner. We took the time to go to and seek out fixtures of the time period. Mm-hmm. We bought a number of them from various places, including, I think it was Sherlock's, that's no longer in business. And we used a lot of those fixtures in the house.
Yeah, but I think, for landmark, it's about what was original, and I believe that the exterior fixtures are original.
Well, they could well be. Yeah,
so the motion, I would recommend that the owner include photographs of those original fixtures, photographs of the floor with a description of the wood, really simple quarter-sawn oak, and maybe another clear picture of the arches and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we're
just
happy to
for
provide
record
that.
for the city in case
Happy to
somebody
provide
comes
it.
in with a wrecking ball.
Yeah.
I do. I have a
Great,
question.
thank you. Yes.
So if this was presented to us without a plan for the future. Would it, I've never seen that before here, with that organized and with how much it would cost in the yearly. If that goes on record and something changes financially with the owners or other priorities happen, can that jeopardize their Mills Act if they don't stick exactly to that?
They can adjust their Mills Act contract details at any given time. If
Okay.
it's substantial enough, then it might have to come back here, but
Yeah, I can answer that too. They, the Mills Act requirement, they ask for an estimate on what you think you might be doing in the future and how much that's gonna cost. They just wanna know, because the idea is you're saving tax money in exchange for maintaining an expensive landmark property. So they wanna know what you're gonna do. It's just more
I
of
just
like a tax
Wanted to
thing.
make sure that,
Yeah, yeah, it's flexible, for
okay,
sure.
thank you.
Great. Thank you all. So do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve with, what's the word that I want? Help.
Modification?
Modification that the owner include interior photographs, as I described before, and some of the light fixtures and original thoughts there just to have on record for the city.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay.
under discussion. You're adopting both resolutions with amended objects of record, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And can we take an individual vote?
Yes. Sure. So we'll be doing the
Designation.
motion is to landmark the property.
First motion.
First motion.
Recommend
Re-
designation.
Recommend designation as a landmark to the city council. Okay.
James,
Yes.
Convery.
Yes.
Aiken.
Yes.
McHatton.
Yes.
Okay, so now we are looking for a motion for the Mills Act.
I make a motion that we approve the Mills Act recommendation.
And I'll second that.
Okay.
Vote, please.
James,
Yes.
what do you,
With,
The amendment,
yes,
Okay.
James?
Yes.
Convery?
Yes.
Aiken?
Yes.
McHatton?
Yes.
yes. Congratulations.
Done.
And thank you both very much. This is what we live for, is new landmarks on fabulous properties. Truly, truly. This is what makes Ojai, Ojai. What, great, and thank you so much.
Exciting.
And thank you, Craig, for being here.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us back to the one, oh, there we go.
Future agenda items.
Okay, so, informational items, future agenda items.
I
Yeah,
didn't get a paper of that, so
There's
there's,
a last page.
I didn't get it.
there's nothing on there.
It was this.
Oh. Okay.
I have I don't know if it's a future agenda item, but there's an administrative report here about
Oh, that's
718
right.
Foothill. Is that, and I don't know that that is an agenda item for the future, but it's commissioner comments later then.
Informational only, and,
Yeah.
but if it will be coming back to the commission regardless.
Okay,
That specific item.
so it's information
How will
only.
it be coming back? In what form?
In a report, a status report.
Oh, are we to comment on it tonight or not? Okay.
It is public record, part of the packet,
Okay,
but it's in the information.
thanks.
Okay, future agenda items. We still have one council member here.
Were you going to report about the joint meeting?
Yes.
That's exactly what I was just going to ask, because I didn't see that here, so.
Yes. So on February 13th, we'll probably have a discussion item about what will be on the future joint meeting. The joint meeting will likely be held in March.
Oh, in March now, okay.
I believe it'll
Better
be
than-
March
Better than
11th.
Valentine's Day, which was last year, if I
Yes.
remember right.
I
Yeah,
believe
so
it'll
was
be
my
March
wife.
11th.
March
is-
11th?
Is the note that Lucas gave to me.
Okay.
Oh, is it with the city council?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and so we'll talk about what we're going to talk about
Is that once a year or twice a year?
once.
Wow,
For,
that was
for us, it's once a year.
That was a fast year.
So March 11th, the Wednesday.
First,
Oh,
it's a
March
Wednesday.
11th is,
it's typically every first city council meeting in February.
right.
Oh,
It's gonna be continued to the March meeting instead.
Did you, Suzanne, did you say March 11th? That's a Wednesday.
Well, that's what he noted on my sheet.
Yeah. The 10th.
It's the 10th?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
better. Thank you.
oh, it's the 10th?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry to
All right.
confuse you. I just was looking at the notes that were in front of me.
Okay, so then February 13th, we'll talk about items that we want to talk about in the March 11th meeting.
Correct.
Nice, I got the list. Okay. So the other question I have, and a request, and my head's spinning on how many people, a request to Lucas, and I'll pass it along directly, is that shocking, I would actually like to see the package before it shows up in my mailbox.
And I have conveyed that information. Thank people.
Yeah. Going out and seeing them. It was interesting. This year, the package came well before the email came, like a week before the email came out. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And last month, I actually got the package, again, remember, and it wasn't that I was out of town. It actually showed up the Friday I got back in my mailbox, which was the Friday after the meeting took place. So I'm confused. And I love my mail lady, so it's not her fault. So again, yes, I would like to meet with Lucas before the agenda goes out.
I have conveyed the message.
The other question I had was, and for the public, we do have 7 commissioners. We have 2 vacancies, one of which has been vacant for quite a few months, one of which just became vacant. We are missing a commissioner tonight, which she has a very good reason to be excused. And so, do we know what's happening with our 2 openings?
I believe that's a council matter. I don't know if that relates to
I
a
know
current
it's-
agenda item, but it would either have to be filled, or if the council chose to change the makeup of the commission, they would be the one to handle that. So, in May. Yeah,
In
that's-
May? What's that mean, in May?
The ordinance actually says that council appointments are made in May.
The council appointments are made in May?
Same with the selection of the chair and vice chairs.
Commissioner appointments.
The commissioner appointments are made in May, but the vacancies can be
They
filled.
can be done at any time, but
anytime
it'll
during the
be,
year.
May would be the next time. You do it like twice a year usually, don't you?
Well, a vacancy can be filled at any time. However, commission appointments are made in May.
Yeah.
Yeah, for our terms, from a term basis.
Yeah.
But again, we have a vacancy again just happened, another vacancy that's been going on for some months. Councilwoman Francina, could you approach and could I ask you a question? Would you mind? About the vacancies? Just about the process? So in the past, my understanding is that it is, the ball is in the mayor's court for coming forth with recommendations for commissioners. Is that still the case?
Could you say that again?
So in whose court is the ball in to expedite replacement commissioners when vacancies take place? It
Okay,
used to
now
be up in the mayor. I think it was a responsibility of the mayor before, but I'm wondering if that's still true.
Well, usually, okay, let me backtrack. Sherry, do you know if there was an ad in the Ojai Valley News saying that there was a vacancy? Because I've seen. but I-
That's through the city clerk, so I'm
Oh, okay.
unaware, but I'm sure
Okay,
she's
Have
running.
you seen any ads in the Ojai Valley News?
There was months ago.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything recently.
There's generally an ad on the city website that says commissioner vacancy available, please apply, and there's a link. It's on the website,
it on the
but
website?
nobody knows about the
So
website.
I don't know,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. As you well know, I was the sole vote, no vote. Again, I was opposed to reducing the commissions. And so that is still, but that's still hanging over your head. The reduction from 7 to 5.
Yes, I appreciate that. I have been to every single meeting. They've talked about that for
Yeah.
the last at least 8 years, so yes.
And when
And that's partially why I worry about the fact that it has taken at times to read. But I've been assured that that's not the reason that the opening hasn't been.
Yeah,
Bill.
you should just find out if there's applications already been submitted, and that I don't know. And then what happened, typically the mayor and then one of you, whoever's the head, would be you, would interview. Sometimes I'm there. I've been
Okay.
there, yeah.
Okay,
Depends, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And it does take a long time. It took months and months when I was working through the process of getting that meeting. So it may not have anything to do with the 7 to 5. It
Yeah,
just is a long,
yeah.
Yes, and Commissioner McCann, we were asking the very same questions while we were waiting for that opening to be filled.
yeah.
Great, thank you,
I have some
Councilwoman.
other things to say. Shall I wait my turn?
We don't have you on the agenda, I checked, but I'd love to.
I know, what's the matter?
I think this
Why does it
is,
say report from the liaison?
they didn't ask me before it came out, what can I say?
Can I speak?
But of course,
Okay. Well, first of all, well done with the Ojai Theater. That's what Bill and I almost said that at the same time when we were sitting there. Great discussion, excellent.
thank you,
Yeah,
everyone.
Wonderful. And I want to tell you a little story about Khalid. Almost 50 years ago, I was visiting, I had a column in the Ojai Valley News, and I was interviewing, just coincidence, a friend of Khalid's who was a chiropractor. His name, I think his first name was Toby, so I thought it was interesting, Tobias. And I didn't have a car, and so I needed a ride. Khalid was coming into town, so I took a ride with him, and I think it was his first ride through Ojai. And all of a sudden, he turned his head, and he goes, "I'm going to buy that theater." And he did.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was almost 50 years ago. I want to ask a question. A question I have is, I just want to make sure, is Elisa's letter automatically, will that automatically be in the staff report to the council? Elisa's letter? Okay, good. I think that's just about it. You know, I've been here, I'm carrying, I feel like, I love the history of Ojai. I have all the books on the history of Ojai, Patricia Fry and the revised version. I have some very old books that I think some of you mentioned tonight, and I'm going to look at them with new appreciation. But I've been here 63 years, so I took care of a lot of, when I was doing elder care, I took care of a lot of the old theosophists. And I realize now, you know, this is like there's a purpose to this, because through them, I learned more about the history of Ojai. So anyway, I love being the liaison, and I'm very interested in everything, yeah. So, yeah, that's it.
You just gave me a great idea for a new commissioner, Ellen Hall. I saw her the other night at Crotona.
Did you ask her?
Not yet, I didn't think of it. Good idea.
I don't think she'll do it, but
Never
one never
know.
knows.
You never know.
So, you know she was on the council, right?
Yeah, a long time ago.
She was the president of the museum. She was
Yes.
very involved
Yeah.
in the Land Conservancy. I was with
Yes,
with
yes.
them when they went around, and we interviewed 8 different individuals as a part of the exhibit that was
No,
at the
she
museum.
carries the
She's-
history of Ojai as well. Yeah, she's great.
does.
yeah.
Nice.
So, thank you very much for your good work. Thank you.
Great, thank
Thank
you.
you very
Susan.
much, Susan.
Any other future agenda items?
Not that I know of.
No?
I'll email you.
Great. Planning report? Anything else you want to share with us, Suzanne? Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, Joe, for being here tonight. Appreciate that. What did I miss?
Community outreach, I don't know if that belongs there, but that's where it is.
Oh, we did, but it's not on there at this time, right?
It's on the agenda, it just says, current activities that potentially involve district. Oh, okay, I was thinking something else. Can I speak?
Certainly, of course.
Okay, so, I reached out to two members of the Arts Commission about doing something jointly with our downtown area and the youth and students with art, and doing it with the two commissions, and they were both really excited about the idea. So we're going to talk further after the holidays, which to me is, I took my tree down yesterday, so it feels like this is really after the holidays, but I will get to it and make another outreach to them to talk about that. And then as far as the downtown district, can we put that just, I thought, who was going to look to see how it was needed to be worded, just so it could be part of the discussion if there was something going on with it?
So I have that on my list of items to discuss on our meeting with the city council. I think, part of the reason was, to me, was to cement it a little better. I thought we came away from the council joint council meeting last February with them fully behind it. But again, there were some comments that I heard that took place as a part of the budget hearing sessions. And so, that was on my list to make sure that we are, that is something that they support us going forward.
I think what I mean is we do a lot of research and before we even approach the council on a lot of things, and I thought that is kind of what we were doing, more groundwork. Whether or not it surfaced and became something,
Right.
it would have to be seen. But that's sort of an update of what's going on in that groundwork. If we can just, who was it? I don't know who it was that was discussing how it needed to be worded on future agendas. It wasn't really an agenda item. It wasn't really a discussion. It was something that was going to be in a different category.
I can't remember if it was Luke Conley before he left, or if it was James immediately after in the interim between
But if we
director.
can find out how it needs to be worded on the agenda, just so it stays current, that we are doing we're doing groundwork, and if we are meeting and we are working on getting stuff, it just kind of comes up. We can always say nothing to report, but at least it's on there somewhere so it doesn't get forgotten.
Yep. No, I agree.
So put, maybe on the next agenda, put historic core discussion for fun.
It will be. It will be part of our discussion. When I got the agenda, I looked and went, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll make sure that that's on there in
And
the
that-
discussion.
Once again, that just something that doesn't have to be a discussion on that one, but
Keep
just
it alive.
keep it alive, yeah.
Great. Yes,
Clarify something I said.
of course. Please.
I'm so careful what I say, I heard myself say that I oppose reducing from 7 to 5 commissioners, but what I really meant to say is that I feel it's up to each commission.
Yes.
If you feel you work better with 5, don't need 7, of course I would support that. I think it should be, each commission should decide whether it's 5 or 7. Thank you.
I agree with you completely. It would also eliminate the need of, as soon as I hear somebody has had an accident, me calling Sherry and going, could you please pull the count of the commission and make sure we're going to have 4 there on Thursday? Yeah. And again, a month ago, I knew that trip was coming, and then right at that minute, 11 hours to get here, and as I told people, we even got into LAX half an hour early. I had been talking with the city all throughout my travels, and we got, as everybody well knows, waylaid by the Horseshoe at the Los Angeles airport, which our driver said sometimes takes an hour and 15 minutes to go from one end of the Horseshoe to the other end of the Horseshoe. So, yes. So, okay, I think we're done. Great, thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
sticking out of your pocket for the life.
I know.
It was sticking right here the whole meeting. What? Is that like I thought maybe one of his grandchildren's toys?
Isn't that great, though? I'm
really
like,
great.
I got to remember to bring that tonight.
I think the owner really appreciated that too.
Oh, yes, yeah. Yeah, and